What makes a super location? This morning we focused on the global outlook in terms of politics and economy and global industry trends. This afternoon we want to focus on the local. Of course, it's the interaction between the two that's important. What's happening at the global level creates the opportunity at the local level. And a location succeeds insofar as it can serve the global economy. And it's the ability to respond to what is happening globally, and crucially, its ability, the ability of the location to replenish itself. And I think that's the key word, to replenish itself when we look at Krakow. And I just want to start by showing just 2 or 3 slides, 6 in fact, that I think most of us are familiar with. So I'm not going to spend too much time talking about any of them, but I think it's just worth reminding ourselves, how successful Krakow is as a location. So this is a familiar slide, isn't it? This is from Hallam's report. It's the trend over 8 years, just showing the relative position of Krakow and Dublin as the top outsourcing location in Europe. And as you can see, in 2014, Krakow and Dublin crossed over. But I think the interesting thing about this slide, and it's something we've spoken about before, so I just want to just make the point again, is does it necessarily mean that Krakow has overtaken Dublin in terms of being a successful city? Not necessarily, because it may be that Dublin has moved on to other things. And in fact, if we look at European headquarters, how many European headquarters of global companies does Krakow have? What's the answer? Anybody? 1. I would say potentially it has 1, okay? Which would be Comarch. Again from the Hallam's report. This is Central and Eastern European cities. Again, Krakow, of course, sits at the top of that. And what does this one tell us? Here you can see that Krakow and the capital cities of the more established countries in Central and Eastern Europe are moving in the same direction and away from the less established. Right? So you have Krakow, Prague, Budapest, and Warsaw, which are moving up and away from the other cities in Romania and in Bulgaria, for example. And again, what does this tell us? I think this tells us that it's not just about cost. In fact, it's not about cost, it's about capability. It's about maturity. And it's very interesting, I think, that Warsaw, in fact, is moving up very quickly now. So this slide, it shows us how much Krakow keeps on growing. I think this slide counters the siren call, which has been a constant ever since we started Aspire, that Krakow is overheated, that it's saturated, that we've reached a point where we can't grow anymore. Because as you can see, we continue year on year to grow. So much so that, at this point, we are between 38 and 40,000 people. Now, the question is, if we carry on, by 2020, can we be 90,000? By 2025, can we be 216,000? I think most people would probably say no. But, they would have said back in 2008, I think when we were around 10, 11,000, that it was impossible for us to grow more. And so the evidence suggests that we can keep on growing. And again, this is just another way of looking at that, which says, again, back in 2009, we probably thought we had as many companies as we could fit in. But in fact, we've added as many again. We've doubled in size in terms of the number of companies in the market in the last 5 years. And this, again, shows that centres keep on growing in terms of their headcount according to their age. And there is a feeling that you often hear expressed that as we become more expensive, so work will migrate out of Krakow. But in fact, work is migrating out of Krakow all of the time. Work is migrating out of Krakow, and work is migrating into Krakow. And there's this continued net gain. This slide is important because it shows the impact that we're having on the local economy. This is the money that's being spent in the local economy. For every job created, 136,000 zloty per annum comes into the local economy. This is money that's being spent by people who have, in fact, quite high levels of disposable income. Have confidence in themselves and their ability to keep on earning and learning as the industry keeps on developing. So we're not only creating jobs, we're creating good jobs and skill and confidence. And this has a knock-on effect. And I think you can see that in the increasing interest and attention that's being paid to our industry by our political leaders, by the media, and by others. And this is crucial, really, because this is part of the story about how we're able to replenish ourselves. And I want to show this slide as well, because this is some research that was done for us by Fons Tromp and ours in 2012. What this slide shows, or what the research was the relative priority and attention that we give to our stakeholders. And it's very revealing, I think, of the kind of businesses that we are and the thinking, or our thinking at that time in 2012. And the industry is moving so quickly, so dynamically. We shy away from the term outsourcing and offshoring. But if we look at this chart, then what we can see is, the striking thing is, who gets the least priority, right? And on here, it's society. It's not surprising. The customers that get the biggest priority. But the priority, if it's kind of a balance here, because the customers are elsewhere. The shareholders are elsewhere. So it's not surprising that society, where we are here, is given the least priority. But if we're looking in terms of becoming this super location, then it's actually our ability to engage with the society which will allow us to move to that next step. And I think it's fair to say that if we were to conduct that survey again today, that would be more in balance. Because I think one of the reasons that Aspire was set up by the companies themselves was to fill that gap. It's pretty clear to me that as we mature as an industry, we're lengthening our perspective and taking more responsibility for the location. There's no blueprint for how you grow an industry, except I think what we can say is that super locations are those locations which are networked. And I think that probably is a cue, I hope, for the next session. So thank you.